Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I believe that I told you this weekend I took my 15-year-old to the Georgia Tech prospect camp. Now he's going into his sophomore year. He's got a little bit of more growing. He's got a little bit of more speed to get. He's got some maturing to do, but we're just trying to get his name out there and begin the process. And I think we're going to be visiting a few schools to see what he thinks. Georgia Tech was really awesome, and the coaches were really awesome. This guy right here, he has quite the resume. His name's Danny Burrell, and he was the pitching coach. So my son is a lefty pitcher, so he got to get up there and pitch. He pitched one inning, and he struck 3 out, and no runs scored. So he did all you could ask a 15-year-old. Because I'm sure it was pretty intimidating. There was some 18-year-olds out there, and it wasn't just freshmen and sophomores. So, pretty cool situation. I've told you a lot of times on this channel. I've thrown 2 buckets of balls to my kids 3 times a week since he was 7. Since my 9-year-old was 5, I started him, and he's a switch hitter. It will be fun watching him come along as well. So anyway, it's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get here, so I'm very proud of him. Enough of that. Check this out. So the crypto market is doing well and surging with all this infrastructure bill talk. And reading between the lines, for me, I think the reason that it's doing that is because people are starting to realize, A, that crypto is about to be a part of the world, and that once these senators finally get done going back and forth, that I don't think, at least my impression is, that nobody's really adamantly trying to kill anything. They're talking, and maybe there's been enough noise made. I just get the feeling that that's the reason we've got green, is that that's going on. Now, I haven't heard out of Joker, who's one of the chart guys that I follow, but I haven't heard much out of him lately, but he is sounding off a little bit. The first tweet I thought was interesting. He says, Bitcoin, gigantic bull flag breaking out upward. Technically being bearish doesn't make sense. And then, of course, he's a Digibyte, Stellar, XRP, Ethereum guy, too. All right, and then he said this about XRP. XRP is on track following the green scenario. News is just noise, but charts telling you the truth. Now, his green scenario looks interesting to me, because if you look over here, right now we're down here around the 80, 81 cent range. But his green scenario, to me, if you go over here, it looks like it's pointing towards in the $2.30 range. So plus or minus, and that's exciting. Look, folks, this story doesn't end without us crushing the all-time high. It doesn't end that way. This story ends with XRP conquering the world, and the all-time high is peanuts compared to where this story's going. So just strap in, because it's coming. Now, here's Ron Wyden. He had commented, given a little update on things. We've been working hard to get a deal. I don't believe the cryptocurrency amendment language on offer is good enough to protect privacy and security, but it's certainly better than the underlying bill. Majority Leader Schumer says he won't block a unanimous consent to request on it. So in other words, Schumer's not taking this some hard line. So just reading between the lines here, these guys are trying to work together and make a deal work. Now, if a deal works and it opens the door for innovation to happen in this country, then you're really going to see some green. Now, this is one of the senators that's been involved in all this, Rob Portman, and he was on CNBC this morning.
So help us understand how close we are to the finish line in your mind. I am. Are you hearing me?
It's right around the corner. Yes, I got you now. It's right around the corner. We've got a 4 a.m. tomorrow deadline. when the debate will be over, and then we'll probably vote at about 9 or 10. And based on the test votes in the last 4 or 5 days, it appears as though we'll have about 18 or 20 Republicans joining most every Democrat to pass it. And so it'll be a big bipartisan victory, and we'll be able to move forward with something that has only been talked about here in Washington for decades, which is how to give our infrastructure some needed improvements at a time when America's infrastructure is falling behind the rest of the world, and we've got a lot of issues. So it's an exciting thing for the country.
Senator, one of the issues that came up over the weekend in the last 72 hours has been this issue of cryptocurrency and how cryptocurrency would be taxed effectively. We've had Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, Brian Armstrong, CEOs in the crypto space, or people who are advocates for crypto, get involved in this. What are the implications at this point?
Well, in the legislation, we do something that there's a consensus about, even all of them, all the folks that you just talked about, which is that we need to have proper information reporting for cryptocurrency, just as you would for an investment in stocks or bonds or other financial instruments. So a broker for cryptocurrency should provide individuals a 1099 to be able to know what their basis is, and in many cases to know what their gross proceeds are. This is great for everyday cryptocurrency holders, because right now, as you know, you got to figure out your own basis often, because although some brokers provide it, some don't. So it's just standardizing the process. And again, I think there's a consensus about that, across all party lines, and certainly in the cryptocurrency community. The question is, how do you ensure you do that without bringing other people into that reporting requirement in addition to brokers? And I think that's a very serious issue, and we must address it. Treasury and the Joint Committee on Taxation, which is a nonpartisan group up here, believe that the legislation as it's written handles that properly. I think a clarification is needed.
See, the 1099s, of course we have no problem with that. And I think that I think that there's a little bit of ignorance on the part of some of these guys in Congress. I don't think they're trying to kill it. This is just my impression. I don't think that they're trying to just crush crypto. I think that they're trying to find the way that they can tax the shit out of this. Let's just to cut through the chase. It's always been about all these guys care about is taxing money. Okay, it's always been about that, and I think that they're trying to get their arms around the taxation of it. And nobody out here that I know has any problem with that. I've always known that we're going to pay taxes on all this. Okay, I've always told you, don't think for a second that you're going to get away with not paying taxes on crypto. And I think that's what it's really about. Okay, I really do. Reading between the lines. Now, the guy that got all this going, Mark Warner, I decided I would start looking into, see if I could find anything interesting about him. Watch this clip. This is when Jay Clayton and Chris Giancarlo were in front of Congress to talk about crypto a few years back. Listen up.
I usually agree with my friend from Louisiana. But I think we may be on top of something that is transformational. And I don't think you can separate the underlying distributed ledger or blockchain from some of these crypto assets. And if we had the same rate of increase that the next 2 years that we've had the last couple of years, we're talking now a couple $100 billion, we'd be at north of $20 trillion caught up in this area by 2020. And I think I remember back, I was lucky enough to get in the cell phone business back in the early 80s, and everybody thought it was going to be a small business, and they were wrong, and I got rich. I think we're looking at the same kind of transformation about to take place, and we are going to have to wrap our arms around it. We've talked about some of the consumer protection issues, but we've got money laundering issues. We've got cybersecurity issues. A third of the Bitcoin exchanges have been cyber hacked between 2009 and 2015. I'm not exactly sure what the right regime ought to be, but I would argue that, well, I commend the Treasury Secretary for putting a working group together, but I would argue this is the reason we created FSOC in the first place, that this rises potentially to the level of a systemically relevant event. And I'd just be curious whether you believe, and I commend what both of you are trying to do, but whether this ought to elevate to an FSOC level analysis.
Yeah. So, Senator, I had the same question you had, which is there's a big rise here. If it does keep going, is this a systemic issue? Which is one of the reasons we brought it up at FSOC, talked about it at FSOC. I again commend the Treasury Secretary for forming the working group. I want to go back to separating ICOs and cryptocurrencies. ICOs that are securities offerings, we should regulate them like we regulate securities offerings.
Except for
End of
Ethereum.
story.
Except for Ethereum. He didn't make, and nobody has done anything to Ethereum. They're supposed to get a free pass, right, Jay? Okay. Poloniex agrees to $10 million settlement with the SEC for operating unregistered exchange. And then we have this where the SEC's bragging about it. They're even putting up, look at the money we got, okay? And I want to make a point here. They said today we announced that Poloniex LLC has agreed to settle charges for operating an unregistered online digital asset exchange in connection with its operation of a trading platform that facilitated buying and selling of digital asset securities. I want to talk about the two things that I believe are about to happen. I believe first, we're going to get the regulatory part of this is going to be behind us. I think that's part of the reason we're seeing a lot of green in crypto right now. The other thing I think is going to happen is one way or another, the Ripple lawsuit's going to be over. And as you see here, the SEC is about, they want trophies on their wall, and Ripple's the ultimate trophy. I would compare, I grew up around these parts of the world. There's a lot of deer hunting and those types of thing, and these guys, they are looking for the trophy deer and all that, and they put it on their wall and all that. Well, that's what Ripple is for the SEC, in my opinion. I think it has everything to do with money. And they probably, and I think that's the reason they couldn't come to a settlement, because they're trying to get their biggest trophy of all to put Ripple on their wall, their biggest find ever. I believe that's what they really want. And I don't know that they counted on Ripple fighting them like they did, and I don't know that they counted on the people in social media illustrating the absurdity of the lawsuit when they don't even go touch Ethereum and let them go, and all the ties to Goldman Sachs and all the ties to all these guys and politicians. I don't think they counted on the social media part. I thought that they could get, I think they thought Ripple would fold pretty easily and they'd get that big trophy on the wall. I don't think they counted on a lot of that stuff. But make no mistake, it's about the money. The SEC is not about investor protection. They're about a toll road to do business in the United States. That's what it's become. It's not. If it was about investor protection, this would have been done a long time ago, and then they would have apologized and begged forgiveness from the investors they're supposed to protect. But it's not about that. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point. But make no mistake, the Ripple, at some point it's going to be over. Don't be caught sitting there, or at least I'm not going to be sitting there with no XRP when this thing is done, because when it's done, it is game on. It's on like Donkey Kong, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I said to pay attention here because Circle intends to become a full reserve national commercial bank. And I wanted to remind everybody that Goldman Sachs was one of the first investors in Circle. There are no coincidences. Then I want to show you this. Link2, who is one of my sponsors, and the links are in the description of this video. These jokers have anything that's blockchain related. This is private equity. Every time it hits this platform, it's going, and it's going for a reason. There's Link2, you see Kraken sold out, Ripple sold out, Uphold sold out. It's because everybody realizes, and a lot of people listening to my voice were there like me when the .com boom happened. But back then we didn't get a bite at the apple the way that we get this time. This time we could invest in digital assets and private equity, the picks and the shovels. That is what's fascinating and awesome about this, and that's what I'm doing. I'm buying private equity, and these guys are my sponsor, but I'm also their customer. Check them out. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that it is on like Donkey Kong, because I believe we're getting regulations. I believe this lawsuit goes behind us. I believe a lot of this is going to happen, and maybe sooner rather than later.